The Preds won last night. Okay, good to see you all. Have a nice day. Welcome to the Alzheimer's Foundation of America's 18th stop on our AFA Educating America tour. I am going to turn off my phone because it's rude. I am Josie DiChiara. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Foundation. Just want to welcome you all here. We have a great day, great speakers, great sessions, great everything planned for you. Please make sure that you visit the two pockets upstairs of exhibitors. There'll be plenty of time during breaks to go visit them, talk to them, find out about their programs and services and all the stuff that they offer. Before we start, can everyone please pull out your journals? You go to the back of your journal, there is a crossword puzzle. Oh, wow. Nashville's frisky this morning. Okay, so you will have 3 minutes. We're going to put a 3-minute timer up on the screen. Everybody say when you have put your journals up in the air if you've got them. Anybody need a journal? Steph, hold tight. It should be in your green packet. So while we're getting the journals for these two ladies here, your green packets have the PowerPoint presentations, has the evals. Please look at the evals. Please fill in the evals because we take all of your comments. Raise your hand if you don't have a journal so Steph can find you. Right here, Steph. Do fill out your evals for at the end of each session because we do take what you say very seriously and tweak the tour agendas as we go along. Okay, we ready? Anyone else missing? Everybody good? Okay, you'll have 3 minutes to complete the crossword puzzle and that time starts now. No cheating. I'm watching you. There's way too much giggling going on the left side of this room. I hope that means you finished the puzzle. Seconds. Debbie Miller together because we're fibbers. How many people got 5 answers right? Okay, so we're going to show you a little video to explain why nobody, including the fibbers, got anything right.
My name is Will Shorts. I'm crossword editor for the New York Times. This puzzle has a special story behind it. Only one person knows all the answers, but she doesn't remember them anymore.
Alzheimer's is a devastating disease. We wanted to demonstrate its effects and show how the AFA can help. So we took a common hobby and transformed it into a way of experiencing the disease. First, we learned facts about patients' lives by interviewing their relatives.
My grandmother is Catherine. She had forgotten to feed the dog. She found a doll, named it. My dad's name is Richard. My name is Doug. Dad completely burned the fried chicken.
Then, we had Will Shorts create puzzles based on each patient's life and the answers they can no longer find. We worked with the biggest newspapers in the United States to have the puzzles covertly published, making enthusiasts struggle to find the simplest answers. In addition to the newspapers, a range of media drove people online, where they could learn more about how the AFA can provide support. We showed the effects of Alzheimer's through a crossword puzzle that not a single person can solve. We reached over 5 million newspaper readers, a total of 50 million adding other media. AFA saw a 159% increase in web traffic and another 62% in calls. And with unsolvable crossword puzzles, we helped many find the answers they needed.
Everybody feel better now? Right. Okay. So again, welcome to the AFA's Educating America Tour. We have a great day, as I said, planned for you. Want to give a quick shout out. So the AFA is headquartered in New York City, but we have 2,600 member organizations across the nation, many of whom are right here in the Tennessee area. So I'd like to give a quick shout out to our member orgs that are in the area. And if you are in the room, would you please stand up? Senior Helpers Nashville, Behavioral Health Care Center at Columbia, Clinical Research Associates, Dementia Raw, 50 Forward, Lantern at Morning Point of Brentwood, Mental Health America of Middle Tennessee, Project Lifesaver International, Vanderbilt University Medical Center. So these are just some of our member orgs here in the Tennessee area. Please make sure, for those that have exhibit tables outside, visit them, find out what program services they offer. You all can have a seat. One last piece of, yes, please give me a round of applause. Because our whole thing at the AFA is when Alzheimer's comes into your life, we want to be there with you through this journey. And along with our member orgs, we want to help you through the journey. So one last piece of housekeeping. We are doing free memory screenings today because our National Memory Screening Program is our signature program. To date, we've screened about 5 million people, and that continues to increase. With our partners at Kmart, we're offering screenings today. If you'd like to get screened and haven't already scheduled a time, see Stephanie in the back. Steph's wearing everybody can turn around and wave to Steph. Steph's in the fuchsia dress. She can schedule your screening for you. We'll be doing screenings throughout the conference, throughout the day. So, without further ado, I'd like to bring up our first speaker. Get ready, y'all. To get things started, I'd like to introduce Chief Gene Saunders, the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Project Lifesaver International, which provides timely responses to save lives and reduce potential injury for people who wander due to Alzheimer's disease, autism, and other related conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gene Saunders.
Good morning. Oh, good group. Good group. All right, we're going to kick this thing right off here. Now, we're going to talk about safety this morning. Now, why are we going to talk about safety? Because let me ask you a question. How many other conferences have you ever been to where they talked about safety? Any? Anybody else? Okay, out of this whole audience, we've got 2 people who have heard about safety talked about in an Alzheimer's conference. I think that, and I'm going to be very blunt with you this morning, you're going to find out some things about me here. First off, I'm a very unconventional speaker. As you can probably already tell, you won't see me behind the podium. The other thing is, I will pick on you relentlessly. Usually, and I told Josie that she did this on purpose this morning, usually we're in a room with tables and chairs and I can move around, as you see young ladies know, I can move around in between the tables and talk to people. And I am very apt to be walking around and saying, what do you think about what I just said? So, why do I do that? Well, normally people pay attention about 10 minutes out of every hour. I'm going to try to get 11 minutes out of you. Okay? Because if you're not listening and I ask you that question, what's going to happen? You're going to look silly. You're going to be embarrassed. I won't be, but you will be. That's why you sat on the front row. Now, I told Josie, I said, now be prepared. Because if I really get into this thing, there's nothing to stop me from climbing right over some of these seats. And she knows I will do it. So, all you people in the back, you're not safe either. Safety. You know, and I am going to speak from some personal experience. First off, let's go back to why am I talking about safety? All right, you heard the introduction. I founded Project Lifesaver International. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professor. I am not a social worker. Anybody guess what I am? I am a caregiver. But it just started recently. Anybody? Oh yeah, I'm a grandfather. Yes, absolutely. And enjoying every minute of it. I am a policeman. Absolutely. So part of my job has been safety my whole entire adult life. I have carried a badge for 50 years. So I've been around the law enforcement community for a long time. Now, in talking about safety, and you're going to see things come up here, a lot of them are going to be redundant. Now, I don't want this to be the kind of I don't want this to be a lecture, okay? It is not a lecture. I want to talk about these things, and I'm going to use some personal experiences. And if you have a personal experience involving something we're talking about, please feel free to jump in. Because when we start thinking about Alzheimer's and dementia and all the other things surrounding it, how often do we really concentrate on safety? I want you to leave here today, when you go back to your home or your facility, and think about some of the things that we have covered or talked about. Because I can give you a personal example of where a safety concern with my mother-in-law who has Parkinson's. Anybody here familiar with Parkinson's? Everybody knows that part of Parkinson's is what? Dementia. And hers is getting worse every day. We had a recent incident. So I can kind of base this on safety and why I am passionate about it. She was sitting in a chair. How many of you people have had situations where your loved one's sitting in a chair with a blanket draped across their lap? Or a towel? Okay, think about this. The phone rings. She gets up. She starts towards the phone. She trips on the towel, breaks her arm right here. She has been in rehabilitation now for 45 days. My wife will be getting her out today. She can no longer live in independent living. She must go into assisted living. So these are the kind of things that start striking home. And I'm sure there are other stories out here that are similar to what I'm saying. So, everybody pay attention. Remember what I might do to you. Okay? All right, if I have the first slide. General safety concerns. Think prevention. It's easier to prevent than it is to treat. How many of us forget that all the time? We did. You know, and I don't mind coming back and telling you, we did. Should we have allowed her to sit there with a blanket on her lap? Well, in hindsight, no. But who was thinking about it? Who thought she would trip and break her arm like she did? You must think out of the box sometimes, whether we like it or not. And I know that we tend to get carried away with the everyday things of dealing with dementia. You know, and I say some very controversial things, okay? That's just because, yeah, I'm a cop. I have that attitude. But I have found in dealing with a person with dementia, sometimes I feel like I'm dealing with a 2-year-old. So sometimes you may want to put that context into your thinking when you're thinking about safety. How often do we think about safety around a 2-year-old toddler? All the time. But when we start thinking about an adult that has dementia, do we always think about that? No, and I'm going to tell you why. Because they're an adult. Well, wait a minute. Let's back up. Yeah, they're an adult, but what is their mindset? How are they, 2-year-old, how are they thinking? Are they thinking safety? No, they're not thinking safety. And then as we go along, I'm going to talk about one of the biggest safety issues and the one that I specialize in. But think prevention. Adapt your environment. Yeah, does that mean you're going to have to walk around and start looking at it from a 2-year-old's perspective? Yes, absolutely. Now, a lot of these are going to probably be redundant, and I'm certainly not going to go over every one of them and outline every one of them. We're going to be here till this afternoon, and you and I both are going to be so bored. It is going to be unreal. You know, I'd like to make one observation. And I'm sitting here this morning and I'm watching everybody come in. I absolutely felt like I'm getting ready to teach cops. Now everybody said, what do you mean you're getting ready to teach cops? Because cops have an inherent habit when they come into a lecture or a talk. No, not watching the doors. They all want to sit in the back. All right. Minimize the danger. Again, think like a 2-year-old. Maybe you've never heard that analogy before. But back it up and think like that. Because they're not thinking. And when they do think, we don't know exactly where they are, do we? All right, next. Is it safe to leave one alone? I don't even need to go over this, do I? That's good, because this makes this a lot shorter for both of us. All right, next. Safety throughout the home. Next. You notice I don't use the clicker? I get confused. Avoid clutter. How many persons with Alzheimer's, if you go into their home, how cluttered are they? Absolutely. Listen, we just had to clean everything out of my mother-in-law's house to move her into assisted living, and gee, Monday Christmas, I didn't know anybody could amass that much stuff in 8 years. And I say 8 years because we moved her and my father-in-law from Virginia to Florida 8 years ago. And I thought, with everybody involved, of course my mother-in-law was not totally agreeable to all this, we got rid of a lot of stuff. Okay? Well, somehow or another, it all came back. Avoid the clutter. Towels across laps. I consider that clutter if you don't pay attention to it. It can cause problems. Install smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. You should do that anyway. That shouldn't be just because it's Alzheimer's or dementia. You should be doing that anyway. Keep hazardous substances out of reach. Are we talking about a 2-year-old? Absolutely. Absolutely. Next, please. Safety tips for the home. Install secure locks on all doors and windows. I would say yes, especially especially if you have, and we'll, as I said, we'll go into this more in a little while, a wandering issue. Now, how do you know if you have a wandering issue? Well, I'm going to leave you right there hanging for a moment and come back to it, okay? They do this on these serial shows all the time, and they get away with it. Why can't I? All right, secure locks on the doors. Yeah, you should have a secure environment. A very secure environment. Next one, please. Display emergency numbers and your home address near all telephones, and make it very big. Very big. So they can read it. Not only so they can read it. Who else needs to be able to read it? You do. One of the things we found that I've learned in police work, that when all things go, excuse my language, but I like to make points. Sisters, please excuse my language. When all things go to hell, your eyesight goes into very narrow vision mode. Does it not? So if you're, especially if you're like me and you can't read without glasses anyway, you're trying to look up a phone number, what happens? You can't see it. Then what are you doing? You're scrambling for your glasses. Well, why don't we just be preventive and print the thing about 6 inches tall? Well, maybe not 6 inches, maybe, but big enough so that you can read it under any circumstance and read it quickly. Because I can tell you, when the adrenaline starts pumping and the fear starts going through you, you are not going to function as you normally would. Not unless you're trained to do it. And how many people here go through training to overcome fear and adrenaline? Okay, point made? I hope so. All right. Check each room for adequate lighting. Use night lights. Absolutely. Some of this stuff is not just for people with Alzheimer's. It's for me and you. Okay? How many people have hurt themselves trying to move through the house at night to go to the restroom or whatever? Or falling over something because you didn't realize you moved it before you went to bed and now it's in a place that it wasn't normally. All right? Nothing but simple safety issues are we talking about, are we? But how many times have you thought about those? I know you don't think about them every day. I don't. But maybe you should if you've got somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia in your house or a facility. Now, and I'm not going to pick on facilities. I've been in a number of facilities. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them need to do a little thinking about their safety issues. Really. Okay, use textured strips or non-skid wax. If you have hardwood floors, put rugs down that are non-skid. Something a lot of us don't think about. Think about it. Here's one that'll get you. Place red tape around floor vents, radiators, or other heating devices. How many of you thought about that one? How many of you have floor heat where it comes up through the floor? Okay? See, it's still around, very much so. Or vents. One of the things that most dementia patients will remember because it's long-term is what they call a red means. It means what? Stop. Danger. So if you do that around these vents, that may help prevent them from stepping on them or getting involved with them when they shouldn't. Okay? Next slide, please. Keep remote controls out of sight. Now, is this a safety issue? Well, I guess it could be, yes. But it is definitely a convenience issue because, and I'm going to relate some of the stories that I've gone through, and maybe you can kind of relate to them too. I've had to go over to my mother-in-law's house at least 3 times a week to turn the TV on because she has screwed the remote up. So if nothing else, think, yeah, this could be a convenience issue for me. Or he or she may get the thing so out of whack they never get it straight again. Now, if you're going to give them a remote, here's a tip. tape them. Tape everything but the buttons they need. The on and off button. Well, I hear somebody say, and the channels. Well, if it's like my mother-in-law, she only watches one channel. That's it. But she'll change it. Oh, I get a thing on the on Comcast one day, which is our cable provider. She has tuned in to 3 porn movies. I hope she didn't mean to do it. And she had added another movie channel. And when I asked her about it, she says, well, you know, I thought that was kind of raunchy. Yeah. Turn ringers on low. Portable and cell phones. Now, you know, a lot of people, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about people having cell phones. And that relates back to what I do. Every person that I have had contact with that has dementia has problems dealing with cell phones. So here's my question. Why do you give them that? Most of the time, now you're going to have to be a judge of this, but most of the time, they can't answer it. They don't know how. Case in point, here we go, my mother-in-law again. We call her, we're in Virginia last week. We call her, she's in rehab. Now this is just a regular telephone that sits on the desk. I don't know what she did, but when she went to answer it, it was out of commission for 3 days. Now, if you're thinking about, well, I'm going to give them a cell phone because they can ping the location, oh, wait till I destroy that myth. Give me a few minutes. Okay? All right, computers. Do I need to really even talk about computers? I won't. Next slide, please. The only thing you have to be careful with in computers is they get on there and order stuff. Like QVC makes a killing on these people. Install child-proof door latches on cabinets and so forth. Especially if you've got things that you do not want them to have access to. Such as knives, very sharp scissors. If you have firearms in the house, absolutely keep them locked up. And I would go so far as to get a trigger guard on them, just in case. You know, and that brings me to another point. How many of y'all have ever had to take the car away from a dementia patient? Was it fun? One of the things I think you need to consider, and this is a very big safety issue, is when do you stop them from driving? Well, I had a big discussion with my wife on, I don't think Mama's needs to be driving anymore. Well, my wife, being the dutiful daughter she is, oh yeah, she can drive. And I keep telling her, listen, you know, she's getting confused out here. What if she hits somebody? Well, she's doing fine. She only goes a couple of places. And then finally, we get a letter from Division of Motor Vehicles. Apparently, the doctor took it right away from my wife. Thank goodness. Sent him a letter and said, no more driving. Well, who do you think got the duty of going to tell my mother-in-law that she couldn't drive anymore? You think it was my wife? Not hardly. You're the big bad cop. You go tell her. You take her keys away from her. That was a fun night. I really, really enjoyed that. But the point I'm trying to make is think about it ahead of time. Don't put it off. If you find out or you think they're getting confused when they're driving, that's the time to take it away from them. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Why? Because you have taken one of the last vintages of independence they have. And they're going to let you know it. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. You're going to be on the bottom and top of their worst list for some time. time, so be prepared. I am still the guy that took her car away from her. And that was 6 months ago. So just be prepared, but be prepared to do it. Is it a safety issue? It's probably one that ought to be in 6-foot letters up here. I get out here and drive every day, and I see people that I know should not be on the road driving. Absolutely should not be on the road driving. And then, and I'll get back to it in a few minutes when we talk about wandering, okay? We'll get calls, oh, my father or my grandfather has gone off, he has dementia, and he's driving. What? Why is he driving? We'll get back to that. All right, disconnecting the garbage disposal. Anybody ever thought of that? It's a good idea. You don't know if, for what reason they may want to reach down in that garbage disposal. How many of us do it from time to time? But at least we're thinking, hopefully, that we've turned it off, right? Well, now you're dealing with a 2-year-old's mind, so they may not equate turning it off with putting their hand down. Now, why do I say that? Because I've seen it happen. All right, next slide. All right, we talked about scatter roads. All right, you have glass doors. I know that in my house I have some sliding glass doors. If you have somebody in your house that has dementia, suffering Alzheimer's, put some red tape at eye level. Have y'all ever walked into your doors? I have. My dog does it all the time. Now, you're talking with people that have got diminished cognitive ability. Give them something to relate to as they walk to it. They can see the doors closed. And it's what? It's red. What does that mean? Stop. Caution. Danger. All right. Moving right along. Don't leave them alone with an open fire. I don't think we need to go into a lot of detail on that, do we? Place light switches at the top and bottom of stairs. Again, we're going back to the night light. Give them light so they can see. Okay? All right, next slide, please. All right, you can read over that. Do I need to go over that? Safety in the bathroom? One of the most dangerous spots. What are the 2 most dangerous spots in the house? Kitchen and the bathroom. Absolutely. If you have not prepared your bathroom for a person, elderly person or a person with dementia, you need to do so. Hand grips in the showers and in the bath. Proper toilet mechanism so that they can address the toilet when necessary and do it without hurting themselves. All right? Non-skid adhesive street, grab bars, foam rubber faucet, shower stool. All these things are really no-brainers, are they? No. Those are things you've got to think about. Seriously. Next slide. Safety in the bedrooms. The one thing that I would tell you about safety in the bedrooms is hide all cords. Make sure your electrical cords are hidden or taped down. The other is no electric blankets. First off, they don't know how to operate them. The other is, if you have one of these beds that you can change positions, do not let them have the remote. They can hurt themselves. Next slide, please. Safety in the laundry room. We've kind of covered this one, haven't we? They don't need to be in the laundry room. They don't need to be doing clothes. They don't need to be handling detergent. Especially don't need to be handling bleach. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the bedroom. I tried this with my mom and my dad, but she wouldn't hear of it. But when my husband's mother got dementia, she actually made it out of the house one night, and the alarm went off, but my sister-in-law didn't hear it. So I bought one of those pads that has the alarm on it, and you put the remote to it in your bedroom. And so every time she stepped out of that bed, touched that glass, they knew that she did.
It's a good thing to do, and we're going to talk about some of those things in wandering. Thanks for bringing it up. All right, next slide, please. Storage areas. Let's just put a big thing up there that says no. No. Next. You see how I'm shortening this down for you? Safety outside the home. All these are good. Stairways, sturdy, walkways, eliminate uneven surfaces. Yes, ma'am.
So from listening to your presentation, I also heard your active shooter presentation as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you have to treat the home or dementia patient as if you're waiting for whatever that threat is that comes in.
You have to.
So you
Remember what we first said when we started? Prevention.
yes,
Prevention. You got to treat it as if you know it's going to happen. Because I will make you a bet right now. It will. It will. From personal experience, not only in my own family, but from dealing with all these throughout the years. How to key outside your home in case your loved one gets locked out. You know, I have an argument with that one. What would my argument be? Anybody? Somebody else might get the key, but my biggest argument is, are they going to remember where it is? What's the point? Okay? All right? Restrict access to a swimming pool. I think that's a no-brainer. Adequate lighting. No soliciting sign. Absolutely, yeah. I like it. Absolutely, no soliciting. What do we say about the computer? Oh, yeah. Well, what do you think of a vacuum cleaner salesman comes to the door and starts talking to him?
I'll take 6.
Take 6. Okay, next slide. All right, home safety. I tell you what, as I told you, I'm somewhat of an unconventional speaker. I don't follow a lesson plan. I don't follow PowerPoints very well either. So I want to talk a little bit about the one safety issue that I consider to be the most dangerous one there is in Alzheimer's and dementia, and that is wandering. Now, let's start that part of the conversation off with a caveat. And some people are going to say, oh my gosh, there's no way. People with Alzheimer's and dementia do not wander. Wait a minute. Anybody want to take issue with what I said? They do not wander. Why do I say that? They have a mission. You know what was really ironic about that? I started Project Lifesaver 19 years ago, specifically to address the wandering issue. We started saying then, from dealing with people that wandered, and dealing with them and talking to them and talking to the family, we picked up pretty quick. They don't wander. Wandering's a misnomer. Wandering is somebody that just kind of flop-fall around with no destination, no purpose, no direction. These people have purpose and direction, it's just that you may not know what it is. But there are ways that you can figure it out. One of the things that we did, we picked up on pretty quick. Listen to what they're saying. How many of you heard the conversation start with, I want to go home? Or, I need to go to work. Or, I need to pick up the kids. Or, 100 others. Well, wait a minute. Take it serious. Take it very serious. Because in their mind, remember where they are. They're not here with you. Where are they? They're back somewhere in time. And their mission now is to go to work. Now, you may dismiss that by saying, well, they've only said it one time. I'm telling you, it's coming back. And it's going to come back more than once. And one of these times, they're going to act on it. And they're going to go out that door, or they may even go out a window. Now, if you think that they will pick doors all the time, we've had them break windows out to go. How do you combat that? Well, I just told you one way. Listen to them. Distract them. You know, I've heard all kinds of comments. Some people call it distraction. Some people call it validation. I don't care what you do. Lie to them. Now, I know that's pretty blunt. But you have got to get them away from thinking, I've got to go to work. Now, Now, you're certainly not going to sit there and say, well, you don't work, you're retired, because what's going to happen? You just started an argument. And how many times are you going to win an argument with an Alzheimer's patient? I had to tell my wife that a dozen times and she wouldn't get it. I said, you're arguing with your mother. Who wins? Nobody. Nobody wins, but you sure don't. Because you're not going to convince them differently from what they're thinking. Period. That's all there is to it. Send them in another direction. You know, say something different. Get them off of it. But pay attention to it, because it's going to come back. Now, how can we combat wandering? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. None of them are foolproof. I'm going to tell you that right up front. People say, well, what do you mean? Okay, let me use this analogy. We have prisons, don't we? Do we ever have prison breaks? People are people. No Alzheimer's person or person with dementia is dumb. They're not. They're still intelligent. Let me relate a story to you if you don't think so. We had a gentleman that was in our program. And I'll tell you a little bit about the program in a minute. But was in our program. It got to the point that his wife decided, I need to put him into an assisted living memory care unit. So she did. Well, the first thing that they said was, oh, they got to take that bracelet off. Well, the wife, not knowing better, well, okay. Everybody know what a cipher lock is? For those who don't know, a cipher lock is the one that you use numbers. You push into the sequence. Within 45 minutes of this gentleman being admitted, he was gone. How was he gone? He just stood there and watched people punching in the numbers. So I got a call 2 days later, would you please come back, put that bracelet back on him? Which we did. If you go into an Alzheimer's memory care unit, have any of you ever seen, that have been in one, ever seen the greeter? The greeter. It's always like Walmart. That's the guy or woman that stands there and says hello to you and greets you as you come through the lockdown doors. They'll even hold the door for you as they exit. And one of the things that I did with my crew was I want you to sit in an Alzheimer's wing for 16 hours. Just sit there and observe. And those are some of the things we started picking up on, the greeter. You know? And the other thing that we picked on, and I'm not picking on facilities, so don't everybody get in an uproar. The other thing that we noticed too is some of them had alarms on the doors, but what do you think happened after they heard that alarm 2 or 3 times? They got slow to react. Why? Why the alarm again? Here we go. Yeah, I'm sure nobody got out. Well, we have also seen the ones in there that were smart enough to do what? Set the alarm off 3 or 4 times. And then the 4th time, out the door. So don't think it can't happen. It can. Do things in your home like disguise doors. Put drapes over them. They don't think it's a window. Put a stop sign on the door. Believe it or not, that has worked. You know, a lot of people talk about putting deadbolt locks with keys. I have mixed emotions about that. What happens if you have an emergency and got to get out? You got to go find the key. So that's a decision that I'm going to leave to you to make. It has been talked about. It's been in many discussions. You know, put the key lock where you got to use a key on both sides. Well, maybe. But I'm not going to advocate it. Alarms on the doors. Alarms on pads. There's all kinds of things that you should do. Cameras. The camera on your doors, either inside or outside, so that you can see. I would advocate that you put it so you can see the walkways outside, so at least if they get out, you can see what direction they went in. Now, the other is a locating unit. Now, that's where we get into what I do. 19 years ago, I was an active duty police officer. We were having a lot of Alzheimer's searches. Well, the searches were not very fruitful or successful. Well, first off, 19 years ago, hardly anybody knew anything about Alzheimer's searches. So we were searching for them like they were so-called normal people. Well, normal people will help you find them. Alzheimer's patients will not. We didn't know that. So, the thought occurred to me one day, some people said, well, it must have been an epiphany. Well, I got to give credit where it's due. Am I, and it's not because you're here, sisters, am I a God-fearing person and think that God has plans? Yes. All of a sudden, I see this brochure about tracking wildlife and how National Geographic and all of these conservators track migration routes for wildlife. So the thought occurred to me, if we do it with wildlife, why can't we do it with people that we are afraid are going to go missing? That's what I did. For my own locality, I went to a manufacturer and said, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to get a radio transmitter in a bracelet. So if this person goes missing and we identify them, then we can track that radio signal. So we did it. And now it's in 1,600 agencies in 50 states, 7 provinces in Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Australia. And what the figure that I'm very proud of is that these member agencies have made over 3,400 rescues without a failure. So, thank you. Think about a locating device. If you're in the Project Lifesaver area, absolutely think about getting a hold of your agency that conducts that program and getting them involved in Project Lifesaver. If not, we also have other ways, if you're not in the Project Lifesaver area, that you can become involved and get a locating device that you can use. We don't advocate that, but it can be done. Okay? Because the people will go. I mean, absolutely will go. And 60% of the people with Alzheimer's will wander. 72% will do it repeatedly. Now, question, when should I worry about wandering? From the very first day that you have found out there is dementia involved. We have many, many families that say, well, they only did it once. Well, gee whiz, how many times do you want to do it? It only takes one time, and that'll be the last one. Or, well, they've never wandered before. Well, let me ask you, have they ever said they want to go home? Well, they are home. No, that's not what I mean. Do they want to go home? Do they want to go to work? Do they use all these trigger phrases? Do we figure out that's when they're going to go? Any questions on anything we've covered so far? Wandering? No questions. Gee, do I get to ask some? How many people in here have been involved with a wandering incident? Is it scary? You know the one thing that people fear the most? Well, there's 2 things. Well, maybe 3. Taxes. Death. Loss of control. When you lose control of your surroundings or a person that you are responsible for, that is a very, very big fear. Can you imagine sitting around and your loved one is lost and you have no idea where they are or what they're doing or whether or not they're even safe? That's the kind of, or if they're going to be found. Well, the problem we had was we were finding some of them, but it was too late because in a wandering incident, you got 24 hours. After 24 hours, the chances of them being found alive diminished greatly, or at least badly injured. Now, just to throw another shocking figure out to you, we also do autism, and in autism we have 15 minutes. So those are the kind of things we deal with and those type of issues. All right, no questions on anything so far, huh? Okay, we're going to move along then. Behavior by behavior. Next slide, please. Oh, look over here. It was the next one anyway, wasn't it? You thought maybe I should know that. Not necessarily. Again, preparation. Preparation. You know, there are places over in, I think it's the Netherlands, where they had a facility and they actually put a bus stop, a false bus stop out on the grounds. And they figured that when they wander, they're going to go try to catch a bus. And in some cases, it's worked very well. They go out and sit and wait for the bus. He never comes, but they wait for the bus. They go out there and pick them up. But just to show you some other shocking things about wandering, VA hospitals. There was one, I'm not going to name the location, who called me. They wanted to put Project Lifesaver in there. Because they had an Alzheimer's wing, and a lot of the veterans had Alzheimer's or traumatic brain injuries and were wandering. We had had a number of wandering incidents where they did not find the people that they were looking for. Until they had a big, big hedgerow out around the grounds. Until they went out and decided to cut that hedgerow down. They found 5 of them in the hedges. They were these real big, big hedges where they were trying to get through, got stuck. And that's the other thing about wandering incidents. They will not go where reasonable, and I use that word loosely, reasonable people will go. So whenever somebody's searching for it and they start using the word reasonable, when it's an Alzheimer's dementia search, you just throw that word right out. Because they will go to some of the dirtiest places. Example, I got a call to a facility, 4 o'clock in the morning. One of the people in the program that they had put in the program had gone. As I'm rolling up, I've got my receiver on, I start getting a signal. I go in, I know this person's in this building somewhere. I start searching. I go to a nurse's station. I go behind the nurse's station to a closet. I say, has anybody looked in this closet? Well, no. Why? Well, it's locked. Oh, really? Open the door. Opened the door, looked up. The gentleman was in the false ceiling above the closet. Why was he there? I have no idea. No idea. And he wasn't about to tell me either. But these are the kind of things that happen when you deal with Alzheimer's and dementia patients. There is nothing that you can consider normal about looking for them. Yes, ma'am.
There's one more thing that some people have tried that works, and you can try it, but putting a black rug in front of the door that goes out, because an Alzheimer's patient will perceive that as a whole.
Depth perception. Hey, listen, what do I tell you to do? Everything. Everything. Don't look at one solution and say this is going to do it. Do them all. Go into some of the publications the foundation has put out. Come talk to, send for some of the stuff we put out, A Caregiver's Guide to Wandering. We'll send it to you. It tells you all the things I'm talking about here and some of the things you can do to help prevent it or react to it. So, next slide, please. Make your home an environment that your loved one in feels safe in. Well, we all want to feel safe, and I think so do they. Do they not? So, I'm starting to run out of time here, which you're probably glad of. But before I do, I can wrap everything I have set up in a very short synopsis. Be prepared. The old Boy Scout motto. Be prepared. Think about these things beforehand. All the things that we take for granted every day that are normal to us are not normal to a person with cognitive disorder. All the things that we deal with every day that present no problem to us present problems to people with cognitive disorders. It's like you talk about depth perception. Big one. But all these things need to be dealt with and need to be thought about. I know we all get wrapped up in their behaviors and dealing with their behaviors. And sometimes being the whipping post for their behaviors. I understand it, been there, still there. But you need to think about their safety too. And I go back to what I should have thought about with my mother-in-law, about this blanket over her lap. But I didn't. And we paid for it. So I will take that one on me. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
You said the tracking was just one of those ways, but are there other ways to have a tracking device on the person?
Well, that is the normal one. Now, this one cannot be removed. It has to be cut off.
Gene,
Yes.
repeat her question, because they can't hear her back there.
All right, the question was, are there any other ways to put this tracking device on, right? Normally it goes on the wrist. It has to be cut off. It's operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, goes 60 days between battery changes. That does not mean it's monitored. It is only monitored when we're searching for them. You can't put it on the ankle. We have been pretty ingenious in lacing it into shoelaces. We have also, I had one lady that we couldn't put anything on and did not wear tie shoes, but she did carry a doll baby. So we put it in the doll baby's head. Because we knew if she went, that doll baby would go as well. And believe it or not, it works. So we can think of other ways to do it. We've even done it sometimes as a necklace. But the preferred way is either wrist or ankle. Because that gives us our better vantage points for getting a signal. Any other questions? None. Either I gave a good lecture or nobody cares.
Is it waterproof?
I'm sorry?
Waterproof.
It is waterproof.
Okay.
It is waterproof. Well, let's back up. There's no such thing as waterproof. It is highly water resistant.
Okay.
We have tracked it in 12 feet of water, 200 feet away. And it lasted 14 hours. So highly water resistant. Now, one last thing I would like to cover real quick before we adjourn. A lot of you, as soon as I said RF, you're thinking, well, GPS. Everybody's got a GPS. Well, the only thing I will say about GPS is how unreliable it is. See? People are starting to pick up on that. If you don't think it's not, if you don't think what I'm saying is true, if you have a satellite radio in your car, drive into your garage. Or just drive under a bank overhang. What happens? It cuts off. You have blocked the signal. Anything that can block sunlight will block a GPS signal. Anything, even thick leaves. So we do not recommend GPSs for this type of application, and we certainly don't recommend the kind where you got to push a lot of buttons and you got voice backs and all this kind of thing. First off, they're not going to know how to work it. Keep it simple. I've always operated, technician and I were talking up here, one of the things I've always advocated with any kind of program or technology you use is the KISS principle. Everybody know what that is? Keep it simple, stupid. That way, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I've given you something to think about. Have a good day.
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. Yep, grab that wireless.
So let's give Chief June Saunders a round of applause again. For 2 minutes, we're going to just do a little quick set change while we do this. Please pull out your evals and evaluate the session we just heard.
Thank you.
everybody ready?
I'll talk really slow. Okay. Our next session is going to be led by Tara DeLuca, who's a certified art therapist from Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and Eileen Wallach, founder of Your Heart on Art, a premier art and healing resource for the national community that helps people process their feelings visually through the creative art process. They do this through programming, advocacy, and education. Take it away, Tara and Eileen. Yes? Yes. Am I on? Yep.
Hi everyone. I'm very new to this, so apologies in advance if I forget to use the mic or what. As Josie just said, my name is Tara DeLuca, and I am a registered board-certified art therapist. My day job, or my full-time job, is actually at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in their children's hospital, which is a stark difference in Alzheimer's. But I've been working as an independent contractor and freelance art therapist in the nursing homes and assisted livings for about 8 to 10 years. So that's also where my passion lies with that population.
And I'm Eileen Wallach, and I'm the CEO and founder of an organization called Your Heart on Art. And I've been doing this for about, 40 some odd years. I'm a social worker, and I'm a certified grief counselor. And just to let you all know, Tara and I have never met, so we're doing this together for the first time. So bear with us, okay? But both of us have the same passion, and that is working with art as a modality to help those that need to express themselves.
So our first, also new to this holistic and creative arts therapies. But as we know, the baby boom generation is really going to project an increase in the Alzheimer's population, which means that there's a search for these kind of alternative therapies, non-pharmacological therapies, which is then also increasing the need and call for the creative arts therapies. They're being used as a complementary approach to the use of traditional medicine that has been used in the past. So point number one is the creative arts therapies are holistic in nature, which differs from the recreational therapy. They're rooted in the arts-based modalities such as music, art, or drama. And just to kind of back up a little bit, holistic in nature, just to kind of give a brief definition in that, it means that we're interested in engaging the whole person. We're thinking of the person on all different levels, their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level. So it's the concept that we're all multi-dimensional. Sorry. It centers on building meaningful connections in tangible or intangible ways. So again, to just kind of separate us from maybe occupational or physical therapy, where those are concrete, specific, and timed goals. And then just to kind of give you a broad overview of some types of holistic art therapies are art therapy, music therapy, dance, drama, yoga, aromatherapy, and Reiki. We found it important to mention those, but as Eileen had mentioned, since both of our mediums really are art, I think that that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So, next slide. What is art therapy? Actually, I wanted to give you the kind of American Art Therapy Association definition. It's quite lengthy in nature, but since there's only about 5,000 board-certified art therapists in the country, it's not a field that everyone is really familiar with or maybe has in their facility or has come across. So just to pull from this, art therapy is a mental health profession. It helps clients improve psychological health, cognitive abilities, and sensory motor functions. And then specifically art therapy and Alzheimer's. These are some of our, I guess we'll go one by one. Some of our more common goals, and one of them being communication. individuals who cannot verbally communicate. We realize that this is something, language and verbal communication is something that early on affects a person with Alzheimer's. Art can use verbal and non-verbal engagement. We don't need them to speak to be able to participate in that art-making session. It empowers them to explore new vocabulary. So through the art, we can engage them in reminiscing and exploration of the art and art mediums. And then it encourages conversation because we're not asking them specific questions of maybe that are a little bit harder to answer. We're asking maybe, what does this remind you of something? We're reminiscing. We're painting a sunset. When was the last time you saw, or did you see a beautiful sunset you can recall? Expression is mirroring their thoughts and feelings. Engagement, engaging that person, whether it's your loved one at home or if it's in a facility. I think group participation for numbers, engaging those clients in something different than that might be offered. It's different than the crafts or maybe sing-along sessions. Art therapy is a little bit, it's more goal-driven, and we have specific goals in mind when we're speaking about them. Empowers choice making. Always give the person an option. It's simple things. Which brush do you want to use? Which paint color? And you're not overwhelming them with lots of choices. It might be, do you want the blue or the green? And that's a choice that they might not have so many choices in their life that they're able to participate in. Stimulating the senses. So this is something that is sensory and triggering memories. So if we're working with clay, allowing them to feel that texture in the clay. We're going to use light air-drying clay. We're not going to use that art school professional clay that's very hard to warm up. We're going to use something that's simple, easier to, and more pliable. And autonomy and control. This is giving that person the control in making their art, and the control in what they're doing in that moment. And then legacy building and memory making. So this is also for the client, for your loved one, but then also for their family. So if you're making something, think about what their family might want. Do they want it? Is it something that you can engage their family when their family comes to visit them in a facility? Maybe they come and sit with their parent, and they just sit there, and that's great. Being present, being in that moment is wonderful. However, if you're able to provide them with an activity that they can do together, and then they can keep, I think it would be really nice. And then maybe even if they're doing something in a group setting, if they're attending your groups regularly, creating a portfolio. So then maybe quarterly you're providing the family with that, and they have these tangible items of their loved one. And this is just a little bit kind of a back and forth of the difference between art therapy and therapeutic art. Almost the same words, almost the same goals, looks a lot alike, but these are the biggest differences that we kind of pinpointed into a simple kind of side-by-side. To practice art therapy, one requires a master's degree. So we can't call it art therapy if we're not trained in art therapy.
So I have a master's degree, and I call it therapeutic art.
There's, you know, like then there's so many people, and then there's the feelings of just like off topic for a minute. No one owns art, no one owns music. Lots of people use it in lots of different ways. And everyone, if you're using it and you feel in your core that you are doing this and you are there and present for that patient, client, or family member, go for it. But this is just kind of, again, what, I don't know, my college loans.
It's actually respect, okay? In the state of Tennessee, you cannot call yourself an art therapist unless you have a degree in art therapy. Just like social work, you cannot call yourself a licensed social worker unless you have a degree in social work. So out of respect, right, even though we basically do the same thing, okay, and we had a very long conversation about this, out of respect for Tara, I call it therapeutic art because I don't have the license that says I'm a art therapist, even though I am a clinical therapist by trade. So it is a respect for them that they have gone through a certain type of training to be called an art therapist, whereas I'm considered a licensed clinical social worker that uses art in a therapeutic modality.
Absolutely. And in the very near future, keep your fingers crossed, art therapy will be licensed in the state of Tennessee, so it'll also be a billable service. So this might look different. If this presentation was in the next year or two, this might look different. That is a billable service for locations that I think insurance-wise looks a lot different when you're talking about a billable service. It is an evidence-based practice. It's an evidence-based modality. So there's lots of research to back up why I'm doing what I'm doing and where it comes from even. Art therapy, as many of us, you adapt in that moment. You kind of, if the client is not feeling that, we're going to switch it around. If you came in with this grandiose idea, we're going to paint this amazing thing, and they look at you and like, no, I'm not. You have to be able to change that, and I think that's part of being fluid in nature and being able to participate in that. The art is based on a specific goal. So is it cognitive? Is it the psychosocial health? Is it sensory motor function? And those are the three biggest goals that I'm usually working on. And then again, we meet the client where they're at, and I think we all do that. You're meeting the client where they need to be in that very moment.
So for us, or for me, or for the program that I actually am trained to use, which is called OMA, Opening Minds Through Art, we are definitely research-based also, so we come from it at a different angle. So every time that we work with a client, we do research, and then the research is sent to the University of Miami, which has the largest program for gerontology art called OMA, and all of our research then is gathered. So we use these forms, which are really, really easy to collect research for them. And the client is basically just choosing a face of how they're feeling at the moment. One of the differences that we do is we're based on an intergenerational program. That's how OMA got started, by the way. It was pairing the younger generation of college students to older clients to see their reaction and what it was like to work together. And so it's evolved from them. So I do one-on-one OMAs as opposed to large groups because it's very hard to find 10 volunteers to make a commitment for 10 weeks to show up at the same time each week, right? Because if one of the volunteers doesn't show up, then you're artists, and that's what we call them. They're not clients, they're not Alzheimer's clients, they are artists, because once we do art, they become an individual artist. So one-on-one or with a caregiver. So we are also evidence-based, and you'll see later in the slides the evidence-based research that we've done. We're also person-centered, and just like everything else, we definitely start where the client is. So whether you're stage 1 or stage 4, we meet you, and you're just an artist. And there are people that are in here that have actually taken some of your Heart on Art classes, so they can kind of give you an idea of how we meet you where you are. We also believe that there's a difference between what's here and what's here, okay? So this never goes away, okay? You may lose this, but this is always here. So when you talk about memories, memories can come from what's in your heart, and then you can put it out in art. So you have to remember to separate the mind from the heart when you do art, because when you ask people to create, they're actually creating from in here. And it's all about your wording, and how you present it to them is how they put it out for you. So when you create heart, your heart creates art. I'm stuck. Okay, so what is your Heart on Art? So your Heart on Art is based on 2 different things, okay? I am a nonprofit, by the way. A starting nonprofit. And we have 2 sides to us. One is we work with people that have had traumatic life-altering events, rape, suicide, incest, gang-related traumas. and we help them to create so that they can articulate when they're done creating. And it's amazing that when you give people the opportunity to express themselves without telling them what to do. So we lead them through a process. They create the process. When the process is done, they always want to go, wow, check this out. I can't believe I was feeling like this. Look what I created, which then opens up the opportunity for them to articulate. The other side of that is what we do for cognitive dementia Alzheimer's clients, and that is working with them to say, you got heart, you can be an artist, okay, and we're going to help you through a process, create. And so the process, am I skipping? Or can I do this? So senior helpers actually got a chance to do a hands-on kind of an Eileen wing it kind of thing because we had no Alzheimer's clients. They paired up as a caregiver and a client, and they got to experience it. So for us, you all think that, I shouldn't say that, I take that back. A lot of people think that you cannot give a client instructions. Well, every one of our clients gets an instruction sheet, okay? Whether they understand it or not, they are in control and they're going to make their own choices. And so we give them instruction sheets. So your Heart on Art is just a way of helping the process facilitate, okay? And you all can do the same thing. And that's what Tara and I are going to tell you all today is even though she's got the license and I'm an therapeutic art person, there's a lot that you can do to create art in your own facilities and to help progress what we do with your clients. So I'm going to leave this for a few, and then I'll pass them around and show you what we do when we do that. So that's what your Heart on Art does. I'm up again. So, research. So, just so that you know, you can get online, you can look up OMA, okay, Opening Minds Through Art. You can actually get certified to teach it. It's a long process, but you can bring it back to any of your facilities, or you can just hire me and I'll come and do it for you. But there's a lot of research out there, and every day we're doing research. So it is a proven method, just to let you know. It's been in existence for about 20 years now. That's what we do. Most of the work we do is based on collecting research for the use of art for Alzheimer's clients. That is the basis of what we do. They're based out of Ohio. I believe I'm the only certified OMA instructor in the state of Tennessee right now. And we are looking for people who want to learn how to use the process. So I can talk to you about that later. But just so that you know, if you're into research and you like to read numbers and things like that, the website has a ton of research.
How can the creative arts support those with Alzheimer's? Creative art therapies modalities can engage the creative process within that therapeutic or individual setting. And just taking a look at these pinpoints, it emphasizes their strengths, provides that person with autonomy, and opportunity for self-expression and socialization. So if they're sitting in a group, to encourage that group dynamic conversation. It can create the meaningful moments, and create increased engagement in both the home and in the group setting, decrease agitation and elevate their mood as participating in these programming.
So just to let you all know, all the pictures that you see today are actual clients that have given permission to show them in action, and we'll be passing around actual art that clients have done. So we're tactile, right? So we figured you're all tactile also, so you kind of want to see and feel it. So we're going to talk about what a creative session looks like. And for me, it may be a little different for Tara, but I think we're pretty much on the same page. So every one of my artists get an apron, okay? They are part of being an artist, so you set them up to be an artist, right? And you talk about what you're going to create, and we're very visual, so I usually walk in with a Picasso painting or somebody who we want them to try to create something that feels like what we're showing them, because it's all about what does it feel like to them. So don't forget that if somebody, like for music therapy, just because they cannot speak, right, or their words are hard to find, does not mean that when they hear the music, they can't hum along, okay? That's another way of communicating with them, okay? And they're communicating with you. So it's us that we don't want to put what we think they should do on the end of that question mark. It's like, here it is, okay, what comes out of it for you? So I'm all about visual aids. I'm also about partnering with people so that they don't feel lost in the process. So, and it's also about making sure that you don't dictate. It's about create. So we just guide you, right? Whether there's no right, there's no wrong, it's just a guidance. We start the whole group when we're working in groups with the song, You Are My Sunshine. So we get everybody going, right? And they're clapping away and they're singing along. And so we're getting their spirits up, right? And now they're ready to kind of like, yeah, let's go. We also, like Tara said, it's about what you give them and making choices. So for us, each client that we work with, when they come and they sit at their tables, and their tables are covered with tablecloths, everything is set up in front of them, we have pre-made art bags for them so that nobody's sitting around waiting, because everybody works at their own speed. So if you've got 15 people with Alzheimer's in a room, right, one may be working at the sound of light, and one may be working like not at all. So if you give everybody pre-made supplies, then they work at the level and at the speed that they want to make. So we make pre-made, and we reuse. So I always tell everybody, don't throw the bags away. I'll be coming around and picking them up and reusing them. So no matter what it is, okay, just have it ready. The same thing with the paint. We usually use 4 colors, and it's creative, I know. Do you want the red and the blue, or do you want the green and the orange?
Red, blue, purple.
There you go. You choose the colors. We don't say, oh, you can have the green and the blue. We leave it exactly the way we've designed it. Here's this choice, or here's this choice. And it's your choice. So whichever one you want, you get. So we use plates. Everything's disposable. So we put it onto their plates for them. We make sure that the utensils that they're using are usable. So these are great paintbrushes. But what's the one thing on this paintbrush that makes it even easier for somebody to use? Correct, the rubber on it. Okay, so if you're going to be looking for paintbrushes, look for things that they can hold on to, okay, so that their hands don't slip on them. Yes, ma'am?
Do you make sure that the supplies that you use are, like, if you're dealing with adults, you don't use crayons or, like, childlike, that you still keep it very adult?
Oh, without a doubt, and both of us, I know, do that. I use extremely high-end paint, so I use Amsterdam paint when we're using acrylic paint usually. These are very high-end paintbrushes. So, and that's another thing that we're going to get into, so if I'm skipping around, holler at me, okay? But you don't treat your client or your artist like a child. They are an adult. They feel like an adult. They may not think like an adult, but they have not lost that feeling that they've gone through 80 years of life, and they know what that feels like. And they know what it feels like when you start to treat them like a child, okay? This is about giving them back the control that they don't have, because most of us take that control away. What time do they get up? When are they going to breakfast? What are they going to wear today? Who's going to shower them? Who's going to change them, okay? We're all about, this is your piece of artwork. I'm just here to help you figure out, you know, the process to get through it. So you do your thing, and we're going to make you feel like an artist. So good supplies, it's worth the money, okay? Some of the supplies, yes, you can get at the dollar store, don't get me wrong, okay? But I use real canvas, I use real paintbrushes. We still use crayons. It just depends on the project that you're doing, but we still use crayons and markers. It just depends. You're going to see that there's a project that we did here that we actually used, and some of you won't know what this is if you're from a different generation, but we used Indian ink. Okay? And I will show you what that looks like. So, no right, no wrong. It's all about the autonomy of, hey, look what I created. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff they've created.
So you'll know that language is one of the things that it's affected very quickly on progression of Alzheimer's disease. The idea is there. They have the desire to communicate that idea to you, but they just can't get the word out. Alzheimer's was once described to me many years ago as having that thought on the tip of your tongue, in your head, but you just can't articulate. I was then told to imagine that 10 to 20 times what that impact is, and then only then can you begin to share the frustration in what someone with Alzheimer's is going through on a daily basis. Next, we're going to actually show you a quick video. It's a 3-minute video. It's entitled, I Remember Better When I Paint.
The people you see here, at the museum, at the circus, or at a painting workshop, people who appear so together, so alive and focused, are in fact dealing with serious memory problems. They have lost many of their cognitive skills. They are living with Alzheimer's disease. Their involvement with the arts and other creative activities is now being recognized as a way to help bring them back into more active communication and a richer quality of life.
Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect the entire brain all at once. It seems to selectively start in the parts of the brain that are important for laying down new memory.
But there are parts of the brain that are involved much later that are really involved in creativity. There's a part of the brain called the parietal lobe that's involved in Alzheimer's but rather late. And that part of the brain is stimulated through creative activities like art and music.
You bring a person who is suffering perhaps from Alzheimer's, you put them in front of a painting. Somehow, the painting says something to them about its scale, about the color, about the vibrancy of the picture. Somehow, they begin to have a dialogue with the picture.
Compared to her, the Mona Lisa is a shrew.
Really?
I think so. Anyway, she has a face you can't always trust. Well, she's got something.
Innocence.
Yes, innocent.
We traveled to some of the best residences and daycare centers in the United States and Western Europe, where the creative arts are integrated into the daily activities of the people living with Alzheimer's.
We know that they take in color, form, shape, and they process it in some way that is real, that's in the moment, and it translates in an Alzheimer person's brain to have some meaning. The creative arts are an avenue to tap into a nonverbal, emotional place in a person. When they're given paint, markers, any kind of media for art making, and their hands are involved, and their muscles are involved, things are tapped in them that are genuine and active and alive. So the creative arts bypass the limitations and they simply go to the strengths. People still have imaginations intact. all the way to the very, very end of their progressive disease.
So what's coming around, by the way, are, and they're probably going to go up and down the aisle in real funky ways, because I don't do anything normal. So, are what the client gets when they sit down with their partner, and then these are actual finished pieces of artwork that an artist has done. One is done with Indian ink, which this gentleman has. And then there's one going around that we actually used gold foil to create a vase. And then I believe there's one going around that we used sea salt and pieces of tissue paper, Bounty, and some fine types of, what do you call this stuff? What do you call this? Tool? What do you call this stuff? Somebody tell me what this is called. I use it all the time. What do you call this? Tool? Okay. So that's what it's made out of. And they're doing an underwater. It gives them the feeling of what it feels like to be underwater. So you'll see that they have texture to them also. And I'm not sure what the fourth one is that I'm missing. Ladies, which ones do you have? No, I can't read from here, so you have to tell me what it says. So that's the one with the texture like underwater, right? It's got, oh, and tell you, they love glitter, okay? So do glitter, because they love glitter. And there's an easy way to teach how to do glitter, by the way, okay? Because it's tactile, right? So you put a little in the palm of their hand, and you show them how to sprinkle the salt, right? This is what we all remember how we used to salt things. And then you go like this with the glitter over your shoulder, and they got it. And which one do you have? Stained glass. So the stained glass is where you're actually dropping Indian ink, and they're actually moving the paper to go in different directions to create those lines, and then they're coloring the lines. By the way, if you're going to do this and you're going to give people something to color, you must tell them it's okay to color outside the lines, okay? Because they are art. And if they want to color outside the lines, they can color outside the lines. You will also see that everything is framed. So when we're done, we carry about 25 different colored frames. And the last thing that we do for the day is ask them to choose the color frame they want to frame their picture in. And they must give it a name, so they can call it whatever you want. And if you'll see on the back of these, some of them have some really interesting names. And once a year, we hold a reception for all the artists with wine, with cheese. We invite the families, we invite the caregivers, and we honor them as an artist. And they get to see their work hung up and framed in the facility in which they're creating their art. So here I am. I just advocated. I don't really have to go through this slide. As you can tell, for you all, you just have to advocate. You just have to say, you know, I got it now. I saw these two ladies, and, you know, we need art in our place. And we're happy to help you advocate for art and show you how to advocate for art. And, you know, it's not hard to do. You pull up the research, you take it into those who count. There's an easy way to do a budget. You ask your artists, you try it once, you get a group of your clients together, you do something that's at the adult level, okay, and it's really easy to start, and you ask them their feedback, and they're going to tell you they're going to want to do it again. So it's just about advocate, advocate, advocate. Oh, it's still me. So we said keep it on an adult level. Conversation, right? Now, some people like to sit quiet. If you have a client that does not want to conversate, that was a new word, there you go, have a conversation, then don't have a conversation, okay? Remember, you're meeting them at their level, but that's why I have the conversation up front before we even start doing art. Just like the Mona Lisa picture you heard. You show them something which causes them to have something click and go, okay, I get it, even though they don't say that to you, but they do get it, and then they create. Safe materials like we all talked about, non-toxics, things like that. And if you're going to do this, don't go, okay, it's 11 o'clock, and at 11:15 we go to lunch. Okay? You meet them on their time schedule, so allow enough time to start. Now, you don't always have to finish the project, depending on the project that you're doing. The projects that we do take about an hour. So because we come into a facility, we do the project, we leave them with their finished project that is framed. So if we come to you once a month for 12 months, by the time they're done, they have 12 pictures hanging in their room that they've created. And just to let you know, if you're going to hang their pictures, hang them high so that they can't take them off the walls. Otherwise, some of them, like to remove things and put things away. Or start an art gallery in your facility and have them framed. You can buy cases of those black glass frames to put these in. These are standard size frames. You can buy them in bulk and start your own art gallery so that when people come into your facilities, they automatically can see your program.
That was great. And I think that Eileen touched upon quite a bit of this, so I'm not going to really read through the list, but this is a way to kind of facilitate an art session in your own facility, in your own home, and kind of, if your medium isn't art, like we gravitate towards art, anything I do at home, at work, it starts with art. If that's not your medium, this can be a little challenging. This can be frustrating if you're uncomfortable with the art. And how do I start? What do I do? Where do I buy, even? So within this list, if you're creating a pleasing setting and you're keeping it consistent, maybe you can add music to that. So there's a little background. Lighting is really important. Natural lighting, well-lit room. Make sure it's comfortable, and then keep it consistent. I think that's important, and that's important just with caring for this type of client as well. You're always wanting to keep the same table in the same location. Number 2 is have all the materials prepared before the group. Eileen had said that it not only saves you time, but it's also possible frustration, that you're missing a piece of the project and it's back in your office and you've got to run and scatter and then you're flustered before the session even begins. What it also does is it's going to offer a visual cue. When the clients are coming in and sitting down, getting ready, they're going to see these materials on the table. It's going to trigger memories that this is what we're doing. We're doing art right now. And even curiosity as well. So 3 and 4 kind of go together. It's about the communication. So you want to discuss the art. You want this to be a fluid conversation. They don't have to sit in silos in silence. Have that conversation going. Ask questions. Encourage them to communicate about their art. Tell you stories of something maybe that it reminds you of. And another thing that's important is not to judge the art. I never put a label on it and say, like, oh, that looks like a dog. Maybe it didn't look like a dog to them. It looks like something completely different, and now you've put that thought into their head, so now it's a dog to them as well. So we can balance that. Like, that's lovely. I love that blue image that you've drawn. Really strong work. Eileen also mentioned this is signing, naming your art. There's ownership to this. If their signature is on it, months down the line, hours down the line, they may not remember making that art, but they're going to recognize their signature. And something also with that, if they're unable to actually write their name or maybe recall their name, you can do a little bit of a hand-over-hand technique and assist them in writing their name. And even if not, they're going to recognize that that's their name. And they're going to say, yes, you spelled that correctly. That's my name. I have ownership over that. Even though I might not remember what that activity was, they have that ownership over that project. Keeping it enjoyable, both for you and for the facility. If someone doesn't want to participate, okay, they can take a more passive role that day. But also to empower you is you know how to kind of encourage people, what tactics you might say or encouraging words that you might want to do to encourage them. But it's better to allow them to have that passive role to then maybe get into a dispute of if someone's getting angry or frustrated with participation. You want to help the participants focus on the subject, be present in that moment. Eileen sings a song. I usually start with a topic, something that everyone can relate to, a sunset. Let's talk about a sunset, the weather, and you're kind of getting everyone in this group participating and trying to encourage everyone to also speak into that. And then also, lastly, would be to talk to them about their creations. What would recording what they would want to say. So I think that that's really important. That's kind of bringing in another modality. So either if you're sitting there scribing, what does your art want to say? What do you think about this? And kind of these funny anecdotes would be really nice for testimonies to go along with that art. Also, I've taken my phone and kind of quickly turned the recording on, and then I can go back to that. So then again, you can kind of get these funny anecdotes that they might say about it, and then especially to share that with the family or for you yourself to refer on and validate your work with it.
It also leaves a legacy.
That's true. Okay. So now we're going to actually talk about getting started with those supplies and those supply questions, I think, as well.
So pretty much, art is art, right? So, I mean, I don't have to go through the list. You kind of know you're going to have a project. Watercolors are great. You know, you don't want things that stain, though. I do use Indian ink, and I do use acrylic, and we do give them these. And I have to just tell you, we always have hundreds of thousands of baby wipes because it cleans everything off. So I'm sure you all can attest to that I walked around giving you hundreds of baby wipes every time we did this. We talked about using high-end things, okay? They're not babies. They are adults. They've had full lives. Inspiration is probably the key to all of this. If you're in a funky mood and, you know, you just got yelled out, and you're not going to feel happy teaching art, then give it to somebody else to do, okay? It's all about bringing them up, not taking them down. It's about bringing their heart to the surface and letting them create that art, okay? It's about giving them the ownership to say, wow, I'm an artist, okay? Can you believe that I actually did this? They look at it, they turn them. You know, on the vase one, it may look like a vase, but they may like to look at it turned upside down or sideways. It doesn't matter. It's their artwork. Be inspired. Pinterest. I mean, there are so many things on the internet these days that, you know, there's no excuse not to be able to find an art project. And for me, and this is just me, coloring pages don't work. Okay, I'm just not into coloring pages. It's a good place to start if you want to start, but it's more about tactile and letting them do what they need to do. So a lot of times I just have them take a crayon and I go, okay, I want you to scribble all over the page however you want. That's creating their own coloring page and then having them color in those pages. Okay, so they've created the coloring page. Easels. For myself, when I'm in a large group, I find them very hard to use, and most people prefer to work down. So my trick about easels is I actually bought, they're like the trays that you go sledding on when you're in college, you know, they're those plastic food trays. They're like yay big, and you can buy them in bulk. So when people can't reach something, or they have a hard time getting to the table, or they're not seated right, I actually put their piece of paper on the tray, and they can put it in their lap then or hold it a different way, or their partner can hold it up for them so that it's sitting in front of them like this so that they can sit this way. So it's all about finding alternatives to doing that. Cleaning, again, items for cleaning. Don't use like paper cups. Don't use a glass that they think you're supposed to drink out of. And there's some people in here that have taken a Your Heart on Art program, and the first thing I say to them, the water's not for drinking, okay? Because if you put it in something that makes it look like they're allowed to drink out of it, they could think it's Kool-Aid or wine or whatever they think it is, and drink it. So we make sure that all of our supplies can't be mistaken for something else. And they always have cleaning materials. So there's always Bounty out, and there's always baby wipes out. And it's whatever it takes for them, right? It's not for us. Whatever it takes for them to be comfortable, they can have. So if they want another supply bag, okay, they can have another supply bag. So don't limit them to whatever. It's their creativity. You don't want people to limit you to your creativity. So just internet. I'm going to tell you, internet is what I live on to find ideas. And then I find an idea and then I create it so that they can do it. That's what it's about.
And just to go on that, baby wipes are by far a wonderful resource. I don't deliver them as baby wipes. Do you want a wet paper towel? So you're not, it is a baby wipe, but we don't need to use that word baby in it. We don't need to use Crayola products. There's so many other companies out there that you can utilize these, and they're not much more expensive. They might even be a little bit cheaper. RoseArt is a good marker. I don't love them. I prefer a Crayola, but the RoseArt is even cheaper. So if it's cheaper and I need to purchase it again, that's okay. I'm not handing a Crayola marker that this is what my granddaughter does. It's not about that. You're differentiating. You're honoring their age and ability. And then also I use those trays, and I think that it's great for that limited mobility. They're not going to have that flex in motion, maybe to always reach out to the table. So if you're bringing it into them, that's again, if you're using like a canvas, there's the canvases that are not on the wood, they're just kind of on the cardboard. Again, that's really great. So we kind of bring it to them, hold it up for them, and be present with them. And then just on the present moment, I have to speak on that. Absolutely. If you're not present in that and you're like, okay, my lunch hour is in 20 minutes, here we go. It's not about that. Or you're checking your phone throughout it. They notice that. Everyone notices that. We as colleagues notice that. We're just aware if we're not present in that moment and we're not being there for them, it's going to show through it. So this is just a list of it says art making prompts, but we're incorporating many different ideas just to kind of spark your memories. And Eileen said it, if it's not already, Pinterest is an amazing resource. You can be using it for just very general crafts, and then you see something and you're like, okay, this is how I can bring it down to maybe a 1 or 2 step project. What can I pre-do to help that person as well? I'll never go in with a white canvas if we're doing painting. I usually spray it first with a color, so that if that person's only doing 1 or 2 colors or pieces of that project, it's still success-based, it still looks good, so they're feeling satisfied with having something complete rather than, okay, well this only had one item glued onto it. And again, like it says right on the beginning, it's success-based activities. You really want them to feel successful in what they're making. This is just a quick list of our resource references. If anyone needs that, we can email that to you. This is your time for questions. Hopefully we've sparked some ideas, questions in yourself, questions that you might want to ask us, and this is also our contact information should anyone want to get in touch with us as well.
And then on the outside table, there's a whole, I have a flyer out there, so since most of you won't write while you're sitting in a room, right, and you think you're going to remember it, which I can't, so I left you a sheet outside with all the OMA's information and my contact information. That's what makes us different, by the way. I'm allowed to go out and into the facilities to facilitate therapeutic art, where Tara works for a organization that is specific to her job. So
sorry, I have to stop you there.
That's right, you do independent.
So I can't go into another Vanderbilt location. That's my only caveat for that. I can go into as an independent contractor. Yeah, sorry. And I do. I recognize some of you guys.
So that's where we are. Sister?
Please wait for the microphone.
When people are working as partners, how often are there disagreements? And how do you handle it?
Can you say that again, because we only got part of it?
When working with partners, how often are there disagreements? And how do you handle it?
So for me, when you're working with a partner, there really isn't a disagreement because the partner is only there to help through the process. So the partner actually is allowing the client to do whatever they want. So if the client says, I'm done, they're done. Okay? the partner may say, do you want to try a different brush? If they say no, no. I mean, it's left with meeting the client where they're at. So we very rarely have arguments. The only argument we actually kind of have is when somebody goes to pick them up from their room and it's time for art and they're not quite in the mindset to, I don't want to do art today. That is usually where we have the hardest time, is removing them and bringing them. But if they don't want to come, we don't make them come.
I misunderstood. I thought they were both clients.
So, no, one's an artist and one's a partner, as we call them. So a partner would be somebody who has decided to volunteer to sit with this artist to help them in the process. Which is, the process is that piece of paper that you see on top of your, on the piece of the art. So the partner knows exactly what is happening in the process.
I have a question for Tara. Can you just give us an idea of a typical session? If you were to, I do programming at a memory care in Franklin. So if you were to come and work with, say, 15 residents for like a 45-minute session, what would that look like?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think some other people can maybe testify to this. So I usually kind of cap my groups at 12. 12, for some reason, seems to be the sweet spot for me. If you're getting up to 15, you're kind of more in a class than a therapeutic activity. I come in, I have my big old bag of stuff, and I usually try to arrive a couple minutes early. And so while the workers are gathering the residents, I'm there setting up. I always go to the same tables in that same location, how I spoke about earlier, kind of that root memory that, okay, well, last time this lady was here, we did something like this. I'll set it up. A lot of the times I really like to emulate other art, because then that's going to spark those memories. So actually later today I'm going to another facility and we are emulating Van Gogh's Sunflowers. So you may or may not have seen it since college or ever, but once I show it, oh yeah, I saw that in a photo. For all of us, for our memories as well. I've pre-painted, it's going to be a community project, I've pre-painted the background of the canvas of Van Gogh's simple two colors, and what each person is going to get is a small wooden flower. So it's success-based, and it's going to look like a flower. It's going to look like what Van Gogh had, and we're going to, at the beginning of the session, we'll talk about Van Gogh. Maybe has anyone been to France? Did anyone see this? Kind of those travel memories we're going to spark as we're getting started. And they're going to paint this wood flower. We have a couple. If they are, like Eileen said, if one is working faster, they can do a few. If one completes one, if one person completes one, that's perfectly fine as well. And then towards the end of the session, we're going to start collecting them, glue them on, and then we're going to have this, and we're going to have, it's 16 by 20, it's a large canvas. So that's going to hopefully go within that facility to then I'll talk about that gallery, showing what everyone is doing. But this is a community-based project, and I don't do that every time, but that's what I'm doing today. And it's nice because also we get into this mode of how much more stuff do they need in their room, and I always try to kind of balance that. If 1 month or 1 week I'm doing something that they're taking home, the next month or into their room, the next month I'm most likely going to be doing something that's more for the facility, to try to balance that. And making that just their own. So simple, even if you recall Van Gogh's, he wrote his name right on the vase. We're going to write the facility's name right on the vase. So it's theirs. Everyone's going to have ownership over that. And then towards the end, we're going to talk about that. We're going to share it and kind of close that session as well. No problem.
Sister, did you have a question?
Where did you get your degree?
So I try to hide it very well, but I'm from New York, so my master's degree is from Hofstra University, and it's a master's in art therapy, and I did my practical training up there as well. I recently moved down here for the job at Vanderbilt.
Did we have a facility here, a college here, that would provide that degree?
So Lipscomb is, art therapy is growing. It, I think, was really growing up until about 2008. Then the economy kind of shifted, and these additional therapies UC took a downfall because that was where if budget just needed to be cut, that was a location that it could be cut, unfortunately. Now we're on this upswing again. Lipscomb has a program. It's not a master's degree. They're applying for their master's. They have an undergrad, so you can get some training. One can get some training in it. You wouldn't be able to practice and call yourself that art therapist without that additional training. But if one were to be interested in like how to implement these things and what are some of the therapeutic values of it, I think that might be a great place. There's also a college in Pennsylvania, and I don't exactly know the name, but I have a student or volunteer that's actually doing that. She's just starting that program, and that's actually online. I never took a class online, so I don't know what that might look like and what the feel is different. I'm so visual that I don't know if that would be a success case for me, but that's also an option there.
We have time for one more question.
I just heard them click it on. Okay, that's just a real nuts and bolts question, but I was thinking this might be something I'd really like to try to do with the seniors at my mom's assisted living. And one big hurdle I see is they just don't really have a good place to do art. Everything is carpeted, and there's not like a room that you can just sort of let your hair down. What do y'all do in a situation like that?
So they don't have a place where they eat?
It's carpeted.
So that's why they made plastic coverings. So I travel with a lot of plastic. I cover the floors, whether with painters' canvases or just rolls of plastic. I go into a lot of facilities that have carpeting on it, and we just cover the area.
I think that's a struggle that we deal with. And also, like we said, it's non-toxic. Most of the time it's non-staining as well. So if it's something, I do facilities. I work at facilities that you're in that lunchroom or that dining area. I think the bigger challenge at that point is scheduling in between because meals last for a long time.
Right, they do have activities in that area.
And before lunch is up for at least, I'm sure you're agreeing, but just to let you know, to do an art therapy or therapeutic art, before lunch is your best time, by the way. Because after lunch, when that carbohydrate sets in and they've had a full day, so we try to schedule most of our programs in the morning hours as opposed to the afternoon hours.
Okay. I wanted to say thank you to Tara and to Eileen. Let's give them a round of applause.
I'm going home with my art, so
Please return her art to her. So we are going to take a 15-minute break, but before we do that, Kyle, where are you? There you are. Okay. I'd like everyone to please just swivel in your chairs.